also teach you the Adobe ACA exam. So if any of you are interested in taking them next semester, you can talk to me after the class. You can talk to the kids out there. Some of you probably took some. Are you familiar with the ACA exam here? It's Adobe Certified Associate, and it's offered in the digital lounge here. Usually it costs a lot of money to do a test like this, and in the result of 10 weeks, you take a test that monitors by Adobe. We're not writing the test. Actually, I write one of some of the tests, but I'm not telling anybody. But the test comes from Adobe, and you get the result right away, and you get certified, and you get a tiny little Adobe ACA on your resume, on your business card. And people ask, why is it good for me? It is good in terms of sending a resume to a lot of people, and some people say, wow, you're an Adobe associate, so probably you know more than others. You know more than others? I'm not sure, but it will help you get jobs because people love symbols on resumes. So it gets you more involved with a lot of stuff, and a lot of people really like it. And I just bumped into one of the students that just told me she got an internship just because she was one of my students at the ACA, and she took the Illustrator class, and she loves Illustrator so much now, and she got the job, and la la la, and all this stuff. But anyway, this is nothing to do with the ACA. This is just an independent class. And if you see here on the screen, I have a little presentation about painting in Adobe Illustrator, working with vector brushes. I basically created this presentation with Adobe Spark. Any of you familiar with Adobe Spark? So it is a presentation and also a social media software on the web that you can use it on devices, on the iPhone, on desktop, to create videos, presentation, page presentation, and posts. And this is a page presentation. So you can see in the background, all these drawings, they were all done in Adobe Illustrator, and they're all vector. Everything is vector. And basically over here I have and I think Erica posted the link on the website also for this presentation. And this is overview about Adobe Illustrator brushes, and they provide you a wide variety of preset to create some stuff and drawing and all kind of stuff like this. So what do we have in Illustrator in general? We do have 5 kind of brushes plus others. We have a calligraphy brush, we have a scatter brush, art brush, bristle brush, border brush, and now we also have a pixel-based brush. What does it mean? If you do some scatter brushes and things like this, or art brushes, you can actually use pixel-based images from Photoshop. The good news is that you can use it right away from Photoshop. The bad news is it pixelates. So if you take something that it's really tiny and you want to make it in Illustrator really big, guess what? It is going to behave like in Photoshop, because Illustrator is a vector-based program. Everything is resolution independent, and everything is sharp and wonderful. And the pixel brush takes a lot more memory. On top of the pixel brush, we have something else called blob brush. And this is a brush that's blobs. And you can use a lot of stuff with it to create all kind of shapes. And this one, you cannot save the presets. It's basically like you drawing at home with something and draw again and draw again. And I will ask you, can you draw it again the same? And you're like, I don't know, let me look. Because you cannot save anything that you did in terms of the presets of the brush. So I'm going to, in this little PDF here, I have creating calligraphy brushes. And I can start showing you how to create the brushes from the beginning to end. And have some drawing. Then I'm creating like custom brushes in Illustrator, which these are art brushes, or they are going to be other custom brushes. You can see if it's an art brush, you can work with artistic brushes to create some stuff, and you see a dialog box and you can save that. Then you create a scatter brush, and you can see different colors over here. Then you can have different options, Then we're going to go through, if we have time, to create pattern brushes, and we create them to create a pattern and also to go in and create it to create some kind of maybe shadowing some areas. You can see here the drawing. The frame has some brushes, but inside the scribe, these little guides and textures, they are all brushes. And they're created just for that. And we're going to go through that. Then we're going to have the beautiful bristle brushes. And for that, it's really, you need the tablet. I mean, it's going to be the best if you use the tablet. If you don't have a tablet, it's still going to look good, but not as good because these brushes are pressure sensitive. So if you kind of like hold down the mouse and do it like strong with a pen, it's going to be darker and harder and everything like this. Do you have a tablet there? That's perfect. And we're going to go through how to create that. And then I could create pixel brushes. You can see here. And these are the blob brushes. And you can see there's nothing that we can save. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about creating other brushes and then going in and creating brushes from images and all kind of stuff like that. The whole idea is to be happy with using brushes in Illustrator. Like I said before, this is one of the only tools that you can draw and smile. Because a lot of the tools in Illustrator, people feel like frustrated and say, well, I have to do it this way and I have to do it that way. And it doesn't come out and it's things like this. This one, there are some rules over here, but the rules are really redundant because you can pass the rules and do whatever you want. There's two rules that are really important here that you cannot ignore. Is one, you can never have a gradient inside a brush in Illustrator. And what is a gradient in Illustrator? When you start using colors from, let's say, from red to green to blue to yellow, kind of like in transition, you cannot have it in a brush. You can have something called a blend in a brush, but not a gradient. You cannot have a gradient mesh in the brush either. So that's another obstacle. And you cannot have a brush that has a mask in it. What does it mean? You can mask stuff with Illustrator, with other stuff, like where you mask stuff in Photoshop. But if you create an object and you have a mask in there, it will not let you do a brush from it. Once you know these rules, that's fine. Everything is cool. Brushes are wonderful, and they're going to be great also for the appearance panel, if you're going to be familiar with it. And I realized you guys did not use Illustrator before, so I'm going to have to go back and forth and explain to you how to work with it. But the brushes are part of an appearance, so you can save brushes as a style as well. So that's going to be kind of cool. So when we start here, I want you to go in and launch Illustrator. I'm going to go and close this one. I'm going to go and launch Illustrator. And this, I'm using here Illustrator CC 2018. You probably still have Illustrator CC 2017 on your computer, which is fine because nothing changed in the brush mechanism in 2018. They didn't touch it, so it's everything is okay and it's all cool. So even if you update, the updates are for something completely different, so it's all good. What we're gonna see here, like you see a different screen maybe in the beginning than you have, but I'm just gonna go away from the screen, and right away, do you see all the way up in the upper right corner, I have a painting workspace. And I'm going to go directly to the painting workspace. Why am I going to the painting workspace right away? Because the painting workspace enables me to use all the stuff that I need without start searching for other stuff. So you can see here, nothing is open on the screen yet, but I have the color panel over here. There's something new that I have a properties panel. It's new in 2018. If we have a moment, I'm going to show you what it is. If not, we don't have to touch it right now. But it's actually fascinating because they realize for people like you that new in Illustrator, and if you don't want to see all the panels all over the place the whole time, in the properties panel, you're going to see a little bit. So you can work directly from the property panel without opening panels in the beginning. And then what you have the libraries, which are the CC libraries. We have our swatches. We have color guide, brushes, and layers. And all the way in front, I do have my navigator, so I can zoom in and zoom out. I do have my appearance panel and my graphic style. Why are these important? Because you can save your appearances with the brushes in the styles later. And then I have a gradient over here. I do have transparency. I do have transformation, alignment, and in the end I have something called asset export, which I'm going to ignore it right now. So basically this is what you have in your workspace. All the way to the left, for people that never used Illustrator before, this is the toolbox. And the toolbox in Illustrator is a massive toolbox. There's a lot of stuff in there. Everywhere that you see a tiny little arrow next to the tool and you click and hold, do you see I have another tool in there? If I click and hold next to the pen tool, you see there's another tool in there. If I click and hold next to the brush, look what I have. I have two kind of brushes over there. I have the regular brush and I do have the blob brush. Do you see that? Two kind of brushes that I have here. And then the rest are different kind of tools that we might use for other stuff. And all the way down are the colors. So we're going to learn how to assign the colors right now. And we're going to learn how to work with some of the brushes. So the first thing that's going to be a lot easier to start with is basically we're going to start from a plain area and then we're going to open our demo files so you can look at them and see what's going on there. So I want you to go to File and New. You're going to get the new document dialog box here. We're going to go all the way. I can go into the letter over here if you have the letter by default. Or you can go all the way to the right and click on More Setting. And that's the regular dialog box will open up. That's the regular legacy dialog box for Illustrator. And I can call it, let's say, blob brush. Because that's what I want to do in the beginning. Because that's the easiest one. And this is something that you can try use whenever you do something. You can even trace an image with it. You can add something to it. You can do all kind of stuff with this blob brush. I'm going to do it 8.5 by 11 and I'm going to do it inches right now. And I can create some artboards. What does it mean, artboards in Illustrator? How many artboards you can do, like more pages for say. At the newest program right now, we can do up to 1,000 artboards. Do I need 1,000 artboards? Probably never in my life, but they made it like this now. And now I'm going to go in and say create document. So I'm just creating a regular document. Hi. And then I want you guys to go to your swatch panel and click and drag that out. This is the default swatch panel. We are not going to worry about even creating new colors right now. We're going to play just with that and maybe load some existing libraries. So these are the swatches. So every time I click on a swatch here, you can see that all the way up in my control, it will tell me that in the upper left corner, this one is the fill that will fill the object, and this one is going to be the stroke. All the brushes in Illustrator are basically stroke-based brushes, except the blob brush. The blob brush that we're going to look at, it's a different kind of animal. It doesn't belong to the whole set, and it's not a stroke-based one. So let's double-click on the blob brush. Just double click on it. And look what you get here. You get here a dialog box. And they're asking you, what do you want to do with this kind of brush? But you already see here, they don't give you any place to like save presets because you cannot. So if you fall in love with a certain way that your blob brush is going to work in the future, memorize it. Write it down. There's no way to go back to it the same way. So what does it say? You can ask you to keep selecting it. So let's say that we'll keep selecting and say merge only with the selection. And what does it mean? Whenever you start drawing and you want the drawing to merge, the other object has to be selected. So I'm going to go and click on that. Other thing that you have here is the fidelity. All the way to the left, the brush is going to be really accurate the way you draw. All the way to the right, it's going to be smoother. And somewhere in the middle, it's just going to go in and say, well, it's just going to go in the middle and going to be more or less the way I want it. So I actually don't see a lot of difference between that. So I kind of leave it in the middle. Some people change it from every now and then, depending on that. Other thing that you have here, this is the size of the brush. So I can go to a size and make it bigger or smaller. I can go in to the side. Right now it's a fixed size. But if I do random, you can see I can do two kind of sizes. I can change the angle. I can do a random changes, so I can do different kind of angles the way it works. And I can also change the roundness of my blob. And I can also do it here. And then if I go on random, the other one is going to do a different one. So you can see two different ones over here. One's going to be like this and the other one's going to be like this. So it's really up to you how you work with it. Now we're going to click OK. And we are going to start drawing. So I'm going to start drawing on the screen. And remember when I said to you, this is not a stroke brush. As soon as I start drawing with it, look what you have here in the fill. It is black fill. That's how they say it. It's a black fill. It used to be a stroke, but it's not a stroke anymore. I can go and change the color, let's say to green. And look what I'm doing. I'm going to start to do kind of, and see, I have like a different directions over here. You see, these guys did not go in, and so you see like they are one inside each other, just all with the selection. So they merge only when I had the selection. If I'm going to do select all and delete and double click and say merge anyway, anytime. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to play with it a little bit. So look what I'm doing now. It's selected, but it is going to merge anyway. And I want to make the brush a little bit smaller right now. So instead of double clicking on it again, I'm going to my brackets on my keyboard. The left bracket's going to make it smaller. The right bracket is going to make it bigger. So it's not changing the quality of the brush, but it's changing the size. If I really want to change the angle, I have to go back and double click on the blob brush and change it. But if I want to change it a little bit different size, look what I'm doing. I can go back here and create that, and I can go back here and create that. But what did I create right now? It's one path in Illustrator. So if I am going to my selection tool, look what it is. It's one. So this brush, that's why they call it blob, because it's basically creating blobs. It is a brush that if you want to draw on an entire area, almost like drawing in Photoshop, and don't want to have a lot of anchor point and a lot of path, you use the blob brush because it's going to be one path only. If I am going to go later and I'm going to change the color, let's say, see now it even going in and merging it and merging it, and all of a sudden I'm deselecting and I'm deciding to go in with the blob brush and start making it with a red color. That's not gonna merge because it's merging only into one color. Does that make sense? But these brushes are really cool because what can you do with them? You can go, let's say, and zoom into this area and then go into the direct selection tool and even select just the area inside and just do stuff like this. Select the area inside here and all of a sudden you have a whole area. Select with the direction selection tool here and start doing that. So you can go back and forth to the area that it's like this, and this is what I can do after drawing. Does that make sense? So you can really use that for shadowing, for overlay in different stuff. So it's really complete free form brush. Can you draw with it? You can do anything. You can even go in and decide to trace an image with it and go over it just with this brush. So what would you do with brushes like this? Probably areas, let's say I needed to go into an area and I wanted to go in to like brown, and I'm going to make it a lot bigger because really what I wanted to do is draw something like that and then maybe later draw something another one like that, and you see they are connected already. But now I am going to hold down my command key or control key and click just in the center, and look what I have here. All of a sudden I have this stuff here and I can go in and select that or go back here and just select this area inside and go in and create kind of a blob that looks maybe like a mountain. And then I can go in and create another one. So I can go in here and just start creating little shadows or something like that. And I can go in and create another little small shadow. And if I want it to be filled, I'm going to go in and select just the center. And you can see I can create some other stuff with it. Does that make sense? So basically this brush enables you to draw as much as you want, to create different kind of shapes, to create different kind of drawings. And whenever you do something, look what happens. It will go in. Now this nothing is connected, but this is going to be connected. These guys are going to be connected. Why they are connected? Because I'm using the same color. Does that make sense? And you can tell it to be connected only to a selection or to everything that you have. Yes?
Is there no way to connect objects that are different colors?
No. The only way is to do it, and there is a reason for it, right? And why can you have it? And this is a great question. Because it's never going to be a drawing like this, right? Let's say I'm going to go into this drawing, right? And I want to go in and do this drawing, and I want to do this drawing, and let's say this is my beautiful masterpiece that I want to use, send to the client. If I connect them by any reason, they're going to be one. Because it's never going to be in Illustrator a drawing that's going to be with multiple colors if it is part of a drawing. And why is that? Because it's all objects. So everything has to be. So let's say you want to connect them. You can do select all and select everything. You can group them, but they're still not one object, right? Grouping is a bunch of objects. The way you can maybe work with it is to go to Window and go to the Pathfinder. And then let's say you can say Unite. You see what happened to Unite? Yes, they are one object now. But you see what happened to them? The one color. Yeah.
And when you were choosing in the blob brush settings that you had multiple variations of that brush, how did you decide when to use, like, how do you control which version you're using?
I try it.
Like, is that based on like the stroke weight in there?
Yes, exactly. So I'm trying it and see if it works for me. So a lot of time I will do stuff like this. I will go in and say, you know what, let me go into the size and let me go into this one and let me go back here and see, and I say, okay, do I like it?
So that's being determined by pressure sensitivity?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see here, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do that. You see what I'm doing? I'm playing now with my tablet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it basically different kind of thing. And I say, well, I like it, I don't like it, I change it to different ways. Once you have the blob brush, and if you select everything to it, you can go in, and you see here, if I'm going to go in, I can go in later and I can add for the drawing like a stroke. But if I continue to draw with it, look what happens. The stroke becomes my blob brush. But after I finish a drawing, I can go in and use that. So when do I use the blob brush a lot? When I have to cover a lot of areas, when I have to do an immediate drawing, when I have to add something to another drawing. So if I have another drawing already that, let's say, had some leaves on it, and I want to go in and add to it, that's when I'm going to go in and use the blob brush. Does that make sense? So I mean, when I first started to work with the blob brush and they came up with it, I think in CS5, I thought, I'm not going to use it. And I find myself using it more and more for like shading, because I can go in and take the opacity down and I can go inside and play with it. And I'll show you later, because you can draw with it inside an object also, like masking with it. Does that make sense? So now, once this is more or less clear and this is the easy part, let's go into File and Open. Yes.
You did fill it with some color. How did you do it?
Oh, when I filled it, when I went over here now, I went to the direct selection tool and selected the inside. And now it went in there. Selected the inside and clicked, and now it became a filled color with the direct selection tool.
So you select the inside and
The inside and delete, so it becomes the color. It cannot be another color.
Oh,
It could be a pretend another color. How can be a pretend another color? If I go on top of it and do stuff like this. That's not part of the same. That's another one. Does that make sense? Because it cannot have the two colors together. If you have any other question, let me know. I'll come over and I'll show you.
okay.
Are you okay?
So I was just confused, like, how did you do just like a brush thing that somehow, like, you're really drawing?
With a blob brush?
Yeah.
Well, it's this or mouth. It's very hard to do with a trackpad.
Okay, because all I draw is in the same.
Yeah, because you don't have the quality there to do anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
How do you feel like you can charge
I click the inside with the direct selection tool and delete. Delete.
So,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like using these brackets.
So that's another fun way to do little drawings, and then go with the direct selection tool and delete. And that will help you a lot when you start doing shading with that. And this is why I brought you some samples. If you go to File and Open, and you go to the area that I sent it to you, and I think it says Draw Painting in Illustrator. And this is what you have there. You have a bunch of samples. You have Art and Scatter. You have Leaf Blob. Let's open that, if you have that there. You see this? It says Leaf Blob. It says Left Blob. It's supposed to be say Leaf Blob. And I'm going to go and open that. And I'm just going to show you what I have in here. So look what I have. I have different kind of artboards. I started that from here, which was a trace, and we're going to go in and do that. Then I filled it with colors. And then inside here, you can see the shading. The shading here were done with the blob brush. Does that make sense? And then you can go back here and you have another one here. And this one is, and you have different kind of samples. And then you have just a blobby there, right? So let's try to do something like that. So the first thing we are going to do with that, which is going to be really fun and easy, is I'm going to zoom into the first one. What is this one? This one is a bad JPEG that maybe we want to make it beautiful in Illustrator. But it has its own size already, and you see that it is pixelated. So I cannot use it for a lot of stuff unless somebody asks me to do a pixelated artwork, which not, right? So what's our solution now? Is basically to go in and trace it. So let's all go in with the regular selection tool, just click on it to select it. Make sure it is physically selected. All the way up on my control, I can see that it's a black and white leaf. Look at this, it's 37 ppi. And I even had the nerve to enlarge it. So that's really looking bad, right? Because it's taken from somewhere, a thumbnail. I don't own it, you know, I just took it somewhere. You know, sometimes you take something from the internet and this is what you get. And you see all the way up here, it says image trace. Click on it. Already what you see here is a trace. It already traced. But that's not how we like it, unless this is how we like the leaves, right? So now I'm going to go back all the way up to my control. There is a little symbol of a panel all the way up. It says image trace panel. I'm going to click on it to open it. If you don't find it here, you can always find the image trace panel under the window menu bar. And I'm going to click on the advanced also. And all what I'm trying to do is maybe go into the preset and I'm going to try to do sketched art. And I'm going to go in and play with the threshold a little bit more. And the reason I use sketched art and not line art, because I used to use line art, there's a bug with the line art and it's been there for like since CS5 and they just didn't change it.
What's the bug?
Oh, try it. You see, it's a wonderful bug. Do line art, you see?
Yeah.
Not so cool. And even if I go in and do the threshold, it's like does little thingies and it used to be good. What?
It's only like the one stroke weight.
Yeah, and it's not looking good and it used to be perfect. They just ruined it for something and I don't think they know how to bring it back. So I stopped using it. And I started using the sketch art more. The thing is with sketch art or any other, every time you go to a control that you like, if you really like it, you might want to go in and even save the one that you have. So let's say I kind of like what I see now. If I want to save this preset, I'm going to go here. You see the dots? I can click here and say save as a new preset. Why am I saving it? Because if I go to show you another one, it goes back to default all the time. So when I went to show you the line art, my other thing went to default. So there's different kind of preset. I can go in and save it as a preset, give it a name. And you can see I have line art 2, sketch 2, green leaf. I have different kind of names that I'm making. Silhouette, all kind of fun stuff. And of course you have other stuff too, but I'm going to stay with that. So it's already looking good, right? What else do I have here? You say it says ignore white in this position. What does it mean, ignore white? You see all the way down. Let's all go to view and show transparency grid. When I go to ignore white, it's basically does not even take the inside of the leaf and just does it as line art only, which is okay. Sometimes this is what you want to do. If you do not say ignore white, look how it is tracing it. Do you see that? It will trace it with the white background behind it. So that's going to be a choice, because sometimes you do it this way, sometimes you're going to do it the other way. But right now, let's say ignore white. And now let's go in, and we want to maybe go in and add the colors. I cannot add colors right now. Why not? Because it's still on a trace mode. I can make a brush from it already. And this brush is going to be maybe a scatter brush, an art brush, or a pattern brush. Let's make one and then not use it yet, because then we're going to use that for the blob brush. How would I make another brush from it? I'm going to my brush panel. And what happens is when you use brushes, you have a lot of stuff to play with. So I'm going to go to my brush panel. And this is the default for this file. I want to add this guy as a brush. I can go to the flyout menu and I say new brush. It's going to give me an option here. Do I want to do calligraphy brush? No, that's not the one. I can do a scatter brush, an art brush, and a pattern brush from it. So let's say scatter and click OK. You're going to get a dialog box. Let's not even do anything with it yet. Let's just say, give it a name, and going to call it line art leaf. We're not going to touch it yet. While we'll still have that, let's go to the flyout menu and say new brush. And let's make it to an art brush. Click OK and call this one line art leaf. It's a different kind of dialog box. And look what's going on in my brush panel. The scatter has a thumbnail. The art is a squishy brush. That's how I call it. And the last one, let's go in and say new brush. And let's say do a pattern brush. And let's go and say line art pattern. We are preparing it. We didn't do anything with it. But see how easy it is to already go into anything that you draw and create a brush from it. If this one has anything with gradient or mask in there, it will let you click on new brush, but then it tells you I can make it. Okay, so you're gonna know. Yes.
Can you explain real quick? You mentioned you couldn't add color to the traced image.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you would do that?
Yes, now that's what we're gonna do. Right? Why can I not add color to the trace image? I can make it to a plain brush, but I cannot add the color to it. Why not? Because if I'm going to the layers panel and expanding it and looking at the one that I have here, it's that this one is what I have, and basically look what it is. It is vector, but the vector doesn't know it's vector. It thinks that I'm vector without anchor points. So when do you use that? If I don't need to do any color, and if I want to use the trace the way it is, I'm going to leave it like this as a trace even. And I can retrace it later or do other stuff. If I want to start putting some colors to this one, I have to expand it. Look what happened when I expanded it. I'm going to open it now, and look what I have here. I do have the leaf, and I do have the outside of it. And I expanded it to something. In this case, though, I expanded it, and you said to me, I don't see the things inside. Guess why? Because by default, they're not there. So what can I do here? I can go in and click on maybe go in on the fill and go back into a color and click on it and look what happened. You're going to say, I can really colorize the inside. And you're right. You can colorize just the black trace here. How? Because remember why? Because we said ignore white. So it's transparent. But there's a way in Illustrator to overpass that. So I'm going to go in and make that, again, I don't need a stroke around it. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to make it brown. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to go in and make it kind of like, maybe I'm going to make it actually, let's see if I have some black here. And I'm going to make it, let's say, dark brown. Now I want to colorize it to make it really the way the other one is. So look what we can do now. We can select it. We can go to Object. And we can go into a place called Live Paint. And we can say Make. What is Live Paint in Illustrator? And I know, I use it for painting the whole time. Because Live Paint will take the look of the image and will say, pretend I can see the areas inside and I can colorize it for you without you seeing them in your layers panel as objects. Right? So look at that. I did it Live Paint and see what happens. Look what Live Paint made it to. Now all of a sudden, each area here, you can go in and paint different areas inside and inside and inside the stuff that we have. How do we do it automatically? So you see I have a swatch panel. I want to go and paint it. I can go and select areas, but that's going to take me forever. I am going to my toolbox and I am going to my Live Paint bucket. Click on the letter K to get to it. And double click on the Live Paint bucket. And this will tell you the story. It will tell you that you're painting with fills, and then you can highlight the area with a certain color, and the highlight can be with 4 points, with 3 points. I'm going to make it maybe with 3 points. And look what happened. If I zoom into it, do you see the highlights there? And I can go into any color. So let's say I want to go into greens. Look what started happening. Do you see what I'm colorizing? Whenever I see this little red area, I know I can start colorizing it without selecting it manually. It's really recommended to zoom in a lot because people ask me, what are you coloring with? You're coloring with the edge of this little pointer. And the middle color, this is the color that's going to be in there. So let's say I have a nice looking swatch panel and I want part of it to be a different one. I can go with my arrow key and go to different colors and look what I can do here. And I can go back here and oops, see what I did? I didn't want to click on the dark area, just on the empty area. Does that make sense? That's what Live Paint will do for you. So I can go in and start doing and selecting every area that I have here, and basically I can go into a place that used to be with ignore white, and with Live Paint I can select and close these little guys here. When is Live Paint is not working when the areas are not going to be closed with each other. Does that make sense? That's an amazing drawing tool, Live Paint, because you'll be able to do a lot of magic there. Because you see how fast I can go in and just change the stuff that I have using the Live Paint bucket.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I just ran into an issue where my leaf wasn't totally closed.
So it didn't let you do that. Yeah.
The fidelity wasn't high enough.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to fix that after having already painted a bunch? Or I have to go back?
The way to fix that, not all the time, if it's very, very, if the gap is very, very strong.
Like I could see like on the right leaf you have one on top.
Yeah, this one, right?
So how would you fix that?
Yeah, so the way I'm going to fix that, and not all the time it's going to fix, is I can go in and try to do the gap and everything, but I'm going to go in and go to Object, Live Paint, and Gap Options. And make sure the gap option is on. And it doesn't matter if it's a small one, a big one. So let's say I'm going to go in and say custom. And I'm going to try to do it, I don't know, 0.5. Sometimes I don't know exactly. Even though you don't see it here, you might be able still, you see here, maybe it's not big enough. You see, this is good, this is not good. See, it tells me it's still not good. This is still not good, the gap option here. So it's not good enough. So I might go back and do gap option. And maybe I'm going to do it even, let's say, 2-inch.
So what is that doing exactly?
It's kind of telling the machine to close it. And then making sure, like even see here, I'm going to go back here. It is still didn't do it because maybe it's too. If it's too big, it's not going to do it. But you see, it did this one. So I can play and play and play until it does it. Yeah.
Is there any way to just with the direct selection?
You can try, but the direct selection tool, if you move the stuff, it's not closed.
Why?
Because if I'm going to go in with the direct selection tool from here and put it here, it might not be closed. It's just moving it, but it's not closed. They have to be physically closed.
And can you use a Pathfinder and close them?
No, not really. This one maybe, or you can go back here and try to do that. I'm going to go in, let's say if I can go into my Pathfinder. And a lot of times this is why when I trace, I'm going to do it, let's say I'm going to go in Unite. It's not, I don't think it's going to do it, but I'm going to try to do that. Let's say I'm going to go back here. No, it's still not doing it. Oh, yeah, it did it. Even though it looks open, it ended up doing it. Okay? So you have to play with it a lot. If the gap option is completely off, it's not. And I'm going to show you, actually, remind me, I'm going to show you a little trick with it in a minute. Nothing to do with brushes, but I'll show you a trick with using it. But you see here, I have that. So what if I wanted to make it a little nicer? That's when I use my blob brush. So I can zoom into it. And I can go into any other color. So let's say it's a darker green. And I can go into my blob brush and I'm going to make it a little smaller. And look what I'm doing. I'm just going to go in around here. Maybe I'm going to do it a little bit bigger here. And I'm going to do stuff like that. Or I can go, I mean, this is too big. I'm just going to go in and create stuff like that. Or create stuff like that. So that's when I'm going in with the blob brush and creating some kind of shading. I can select the blob brush. I can also go to opacity and change with my opacity level and kind of moving it around and create kind of shading looking with the blob brush. Does that make sense? And again, this can become another brush. So let's say we're going to make another brush from this one. This one has a lot of things in it. That can be another brush. I can select that, go to my brush panel, say new brush, and let's say do a scatter brush. And then going to say color leaf. So you see, I'm just going to try from one and do the other one. Now let's go in and play with these brushes. So you can see here I have different kind of areas. I'm going to go to view and hide transparency grid. And I'm basically going to go to this outboard. And deleting that, and I'm gonna go in and delete this one, and maybe even delete that. I'm gonna zoom in to one of my empty artboards, and we can check this out. I can go to the regular brush tool and click on the first line art leaf. And look what I'm doing. I'm start drawing. Too big, right? Why is it too big? This is my scatter brush. What is a scatter brush? A scatter brush is a brush that you can use from any kind of drawing that you're doing. Any kind of drawing. And it's basically scattering. So you can see this one has just the black and white, right? I don't like this size. So before doing anything, I'm going to double click on the brush. And I can go in and click on the preview and look what I can do. I'm looking to find the size of the brush. Maybe I want it this size. Maybe the spacing, it's 100, that's okay. This one is fixed, the scattering, or I can scatter more and more and more and more and more, depending where it is. And then you can see here the spacing, the spacing, the spacing. And the scatter is going to be 100%, I mean 0 again. So it's going to go back on top of it. So I'm just going to make it smaller. I'm going to change the spacing. And then I can go in and do rotation. And I can rotate it to the page and to the path. If I click OK, and I apply it, this is my new brush. It's this size, and this is a scatter brush. So what is a scatter brush? You can go to any shape and click on the scatter brush, and this is what happens. It's scattering around. You can go in and just draw with it, and it will scatter around. But in this case, what is it? It's just the black color. In a minute, we're going to go into another file and look how to create different colors from this one. What's the difference between the scatter brush and this one? This one is my art brush, and I call the art brush my squishy brushes because you draw with the object. You see what happened? And if I double click on it and make that a lot smaller, you can see that I have it a lot smaller here. And now it's applying it, and now I can go in and draw with it. So I can change the size of the brush, but I can also change the size of my stroke. So if I'm going into its one stroke and going to another, see what happens? It's going to do a weird stuff, but look what happens. All of a sudden it's going to look like maybe a butterfly or something like this. So the art brush and the scatter brush are brushes from objects. You can make them, you can trace them. You can also have it as a direct Photoshop file as well. If nothing is selected on the screen, deselect everything. Go to a new brush. Look what happened in a new brush dialog box. What is it telling you here? Calligraphy brush, bristle brush, and pattern brush, but not the other one. Does that make sense? I might want to save this brush panel because maybe I want to bring it to another area. So I can go to the flyout menu, and then I can say Save Brush Library. Do you see that? And then I can go to my desktop and I can call it Blob and More. So because it was the sample. I saved it. I might be able to bring it later to do some other stuff with it. Does that make sense? And I'm going to close that. So far it's fun, right? Do you see there's now rules? I mean, nobody's ever going to tell you I hate this brush because it's your brush. So you can see how it works. So I'm going to go back to my painting workspace, reset it, and go File and Open. And I want you to open the file in the area that I gave you, and it says Art and Scatter. And this one shows you different ways to bring different kind of stuff to the area. You see I have a lot of brushes there, or a lot of areas to prepare for you to create something. Let's look at the stuff that we have here. The first thing we have on the left side is something like that. This one is basically a Photoshop file. If you want to see the original, it is in there too. What I did, I went to Photoshop. I played with some Photoshop brushes. I created a little blob with the Photoshop brushes. And now I'm going to go in and maybe create something here with it. So one thing I can do, first of all, I'm going to check out if I have a background to it. So I'm going to go in and show transparency grid, and you see it's good. It doesn't have any transparency. I mean, it doesn't have any white, so that's good. Why is it good? Because if I want to go and create maybe a brush from it, I want it to be fluid. It is still pixel. We're first going to create something as a pixel brush with it. So I'm going to go into my brush panel and look what I have here. I already have a lot of stuff in there. Why do I have so many things there? Because when I created the samples to show you stuff, it already creates brushes for me. If I use brushes, it will create brushes for me. So I want to go into this brush and make something. So I can go to the flyout menu and say new brush. Let's make an art brush from it. And that's pixel, remember? It's a pixel brush. Click OK. This is it. And it says art brush number 5, fine with me. I'm not doing anything. I'm just clicking OK. Why I'm not doing anything? Because I want to test it first. I'm going to go to my brush panel. I'm going to go into my art brush. And I'm going to go and test it. And you see what I'm getting? I'm getting kind of a nice looking brush. And I can put it one on top of each other. But this brush is actually a vector-based brush. I can use it for a lot of stuff. When is it going to be not the greatest brush? If I am starting to draw and double clicking on it and start to make it really big. And now you're going to start seeing pixelation. So you have to be careful with pixel-based brushes when you start enlarging them. Does that make sense? So for now, I'm going to cancel it out. And I'm going to say to myself, if that's the only thing I can do, I cannot even change the color, I'd better off take this beautiful brush and make that into vector, right? So I'm going to go into image trace and tracing it. But look what happened when I image trace. What am I losing? I'm losing some quality of the grayscale I might have had before, which that's part of it, but I can go in and bring it. So I'm going to my trace, and maybe I'm going to go in and say I want to do that shade of grays. So you see, when I did shade of grays, I was able to bring back the shade of grays. Do you see that? And I can go, it doesn't let me ignore white here, because shade of gray doesn't let you do it. And I can go in and do more grays and less grays depending how I want to do my brush. I know because it didn't let me do the shade of grays. It might have, the white, it might have a white background. See that? And that's not going to be good for me to create a brush. Why not? Because when I draw, it's going to bring the white background one on top of each other. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go back to View and High Transparency Grid. And I'm basically going to expand it. Expanding it is making it to bunch of little dots there. I can go to View, Show Transparency Grid, deselect, go to the Direct Selection tool, select just the white, and deleting it. So look what I got now. I got a beautiful brush that looks like the Photoshop brush, but now it's vector. Which, the one I did now? Yeah. This one? Yeah. I went in here and I expanded it already, right? And now I'm deselecting, going to the Direct Selection tool, and just click on the white background. Deselect first, and then click on the white background. And then delete. Is it working? Make sure you expand it first. If you don't expand it, it's not going to happen. Is it working? Just take your time. Don't want to stress you. Let me know if you need me to come over. You know why I'm not coming over so fast? I'm afraid to stumble. There's so many, I'm afraid I'm going to stumble into some of the chords here. But now, oops, I knew that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Deselect is click outside. No, just select the one. Not the white, not the leaf. That's it. Yeah. So whenever you want to activate the direct selection tool, you have to deselect first and deselect. So it's going to go back to the right place. Is that working? Oh, why is it reading all this now? Jeez. Okay. So once I have it here now, I actually gonna go in here, select the entire thing. Now I can go in and make a brush. And I'm gonna go to the flyout menu and say new brush. I'm gonna make maybe one scatter. And I'm gonna make a new brush and I'm gonna make another art. Now I'm gonna go in and start drawing. So I can even select that and delete and go to my brushes and look what I'm doing. I'm gonna start drawing. This is my art brush. I can double click and change the size. I can double click on it and look what else I can do. You see over here it says method. These are colorization methods. So if I'm going to go and say tint, now you don't see any of my brush. Why not? Because the tint and shade relates to the color of your current stroke. Look at my current stroke right now. It is white, so I don't see it. So I'm going to change the current stroke to this one, or change it to this guy. And now you can go and see, sorry, that you have a different color of a brush. Does that make sense? So you can double click on that and change the colorization method. Like tint and shade, it's going to make it something like that. You can double click here and make it U shift, and it's going to make it according to the U that you have there. This one is not as perfect because it doesn't have a lot of shades in it. But if a brush has a lot of shades in it, it is going to go in and work for you. So, sorry, in this case, what we really did is we worked with a brush that came from Photoshop and made it into a scatter or an art. But let's go into the other area here. And I zoom into the second artboard. And it says here, hello brushes, just for fun. Just select one of the circles here and click on one of the art brushes, maybe on the tulip. See what happened to the art brush? It will go in and circle around. Let's check it out though. I'm going to move it a little bit. I'm going to go into this one and I'm going to go into this flower. It's kind of weird, but we're going to talk about it. I'm going to double click. Now you can change the look. You can change the size of the brush. See, the brush is smaller, almost looking like a stroke. You can also scale proportionally. That's kind of weird, but that's what it does. You can stretch to fit the stroke lengths. And then you have another thing here that's hidden and not a lot of people know about it. It says stretch between guides. Do you see that? If I click on it, I can basically tell the machine, you know what? I want to leave the flower as is and just stretch the other ones. So you see, it let go. This flower stayed as is. So that's another option if you have something, let's say you have a face and something and you have to do a frame, so you want the lion face to stay there as a brush, you can play with that. And then guess what you can do? Over here it says none. I can say tint. Look what happened. I have a black stroke right now. I can go back here and say tint and shade. And of course U-shift. Look what happened in the U-shift. That's kind of cool. I love using the tint or tint and shade. And if I click OK, it will apply it. But I can always change that because the original color did not change. If you want to change the original, you have to go and go into the original, edit the original with the direct selection tool. This is now just for viewing purposes. Does that make sense? So I can go into this brush and do the same. I can say none, I can say tint, I can say this one, or I can say, see, look at this, I have my little guys here, and maybe I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to click OK. So basically, this is just a bunch of little brushes. This is the calligraphy brushes. We're going to play with it in a minute too. They're very straightforward. But now I have the same one, right? Another one like this. And this one is a different kind of, the same thing. It's scatter brushes. So I'm going to select one and select one and select one. These guys basically are pixel brushes still. I made from it a brush already. So you see I have a brush here. It's a scatter. I'm going to select the path here and click on the scatter and look what happened. Nothing actually happened to the scatter brush. And even if I double click on it and I say tint and shade, why nothing is happening? Because this brush is pixel. When the pixel is there, there's no color change because it's a Photoshop file. So there's nothing that Illustrator recognizes, right? So I'm going to do Command Z, and take it away. And I'm going to try to take another brush, which is a pixel brush. A vector brush, this guy. And then I'm going to select that and put it on top of this. So this is the brush that we did before. And I'm going to double click. And I make it a little smaller. And I'm spacing it a little bit. Kind of cool, right? And then I might go in and select the other lines and click again, and look what happens. So I have all the brushes, they're all okay, and I want to do and change something. I can even select all of them. I don't know if you paid attention, but my lines were different colors. If I double click on the brush and I say here colorization method tint and apply to the stroke, look what happened. Do you see the different colors? Why is that happening? I prepare the color stroke ahead of time. So it will take any color stroke that you have and do that. I can go back to this one now and go back here and start drawing. And basically that's the last color stroke that I've been using. That's fine. And I can deselect and create another stroke and now go draw with it and look what happens. So you see what happened to the quality of this brush? This is your scatter brush, or can be your art brush, or can be even your pattern brushes later. Does that make sense? So you can go in and play with the stuff that you have. And you can see here, I have different art brushes and all kind of stuff like that. I want you to leave this one alone for a minute. And I want to go in and look at our bristle brushes. So I want you to do File and New and open F 8.5 by 11. And I'm already warning you that these brushes take small memory. I do have a sample for you. If you open it and if you do File and Open, and you can see here is a PDF. And if I go in and open it, it might take a while to open, but you can see here it's the PDF, the Wow book, but all the background that you have here, everything is with brushes, except the text, of course. So you see everything that you see here, it's all brushes. And it's different one of scatter brushes and art brushes and all kind of stuff together, working with opacity, size of your stroke, and blending modes. Okay? So we can take a look. Some of them are the bristle brushes. And that's why I wanted you to open a new one. And then we're going to go in and play and create something. So what are the bristle brushes? And they are one of my favorite brushes because they are pressure sensitive. And they are what they are. They have bristles in them. So in your brush panel, if I go to the flyout menu and say new brush, you can see here, I can create a new bristle brush and a new pattern brush, but I can also say open brush library, and then I'm going to open the bristle brush library. They're giving you a handmade bristle brush library. And in order for me to put all of them in my current file, if I want, I can basically click, and each one I click on one, automatically it's going to go there. I don't need all of them, I just put all of them there so I don't need the library. These brushes are stroke brushes. These brushes take some memory because every time you draw with something, it will create a path. Let's look at them. Let's select a color. I'm going to go to red. I'm going to go to the top one. And look what happened in my screen. Do you see a little thumbnail of a little brush? That's because I have the tablet. If I'm going to my brackets, look what I can do. And look what I can do here. See when I'm tilting it? I'm not even drawing yet. I'm trying to, see, look at my, I'm start playing with it a little bit. And then I'm going to start doing something. And I can do stuff that it's not. You see here, I'm not doing so much pressure. And now no pressure at all. And now a lot of pressure. Does that make sense? The better tablets that you have, the more pressure that you can get. So you see, I'm starting to draw and do all kind of stuff. What can I do with this one? Can I put it on top of an object? Yes, I can. So let's say I'm going to go into a square and just click. Look what happens. I created just a frame. If I want the frame to be bigger now, look what I do. I can also go in and make the stroke bigger. Do you see that? Bigger and smaller. I can also double click on the brush itself. Go in with the size. I can go into the preview. I can go into the bristle length, to the density, to the bristle thickness, to the paint opacity, and the stiffness of the brush. So you see if it's completely dark or 100%, it's really dark here. And if I click OK, I can apply it. So basically with these brushes, you can go in and start drawing and you can do all kind of fun stuff. But look at that. I'm just going to draw something, pretending like before I had maybe the blow brush, right? And I'm creating kind of like a little tree, and maybe I'm going to go in and do another color. But what's the difference between this one and the blow brush? If I do selector, look how many. Do you see what's happening here? Every time I draw with something like this, it's a lot of path. This one, you cannot combine them together. I mean, you can go in and go back here and just go in and make that into one shape. But look what happened if it's one shape. It changed the shape and it changed the color because it's one color only. Does that make sense? So if I leave it like this, it's definitely going to be just that. Tricks to work with this, and you have different ones over here. And they go by the color. The one that has the white tip, this kind of the round tip is the watercolor one, and the one with the dark tip, these are the flat brushes. So I can go back here and see I can go into this brush, I can go into that brush, and I can just decide how I'm going to go and work. Where do I use that a lot? I use that to draw inside images. I use that to draw inside text. Let's all go to type and let's go in and click on the screen and type Adobe Illustrator and highlight it and make that maybe 72. And let's make, it's myriad Pro, let's make that bold so we can see more or less the areas in there. And I'm going to zoom into it. And I am going to fill it with orange for now. I think it's boring and I want to go in and draw with brushes inside so I can mask it, and then I can even change the font because I don't want to create outline. So what am I doing? In my tool panel, I'm going to click on draw inside. Do you see that? Just do one click. Do you see dotted lines? That tells you whatever you're going to do, it's going to do inside. That's it. Inside the Adobe Illustrator, not anywhere else. What I really want to do is deselect one time because I want to create different kind of colors. So I'm going to go into I'm going to activate my stroke. I don't need the fill right now. And I'm going to go into dark red and I'm going to go into a brush. And look what I'm start doing it. See what I'm doing? Do you see me drawing inside? And I'm deselecting and taking blue and making the brush a little smaller. And I might go into the brush and maybe the opacity is a little stronger, and look what happened. Do you see little things already there? How cool is that? This is Illustrator. Does it look like Illustrator now? It looks like maybe I did it in Photoshop. I want to change what I wrote. I can still go to the type. I can highlight the type, and I'm going to call it brushes. Wow. And you see what I have? I still have that. It is masked inside. If I double click, it's outside of the mask. If I select, I can move it together. And what I have all the way up here, and that's the part that I want to show you my workflow, because if I need to do more with this, look what I'm doing. I'm going here and look at that. I have the Illustrator, so I'm gonna open it. It's a clipping group. The top one is the word Illustrator. So I can go in and say draw inside again and then continue drawing. But all the others, so, and then I'm gonna click here, edit content. These are all my brushes. So a lot of time, if I have more to draw, I'm gonna do object and I'm going to go in and I'm grouping it. So it's gonna be group number 1 for me. I might even lock this group. Click just on the brushes. Do another draw inside. Deselect. Go to another color. Go to maybe even another brush. And now I'm just going to go inside again. Does that make sense? So I can put stuff one on top of each other and I can see. And now I can select all of these guys again. This is the mask. This is the new guys, and I'm going to group them. So I have one group and another group, so I can decide which one or none. I can still go to the type and decide that I want to create a stroke. I don't like strokes, but I wanted to create a stroke. So yes. Did you say draw inside? That's the first thing you have to do, is click inside where your toolbox is and say draw inside. The draw inside is basically letting you mask. You can draw inside text. You can draw inside anything that you want, but that enables you to draw inside the object. Does that make sense? It has to be one object at a time. So if I'm going over here and let's say I'm just going to have a star and I'm going to feel like creating something beautiful with a star, I'm going to click here, deselect. You see, that's what you have to look for. These little guys here. And now I can go to anything. I can even start typing, basically. If I feel like typing something, I can go into the type tool and see here it's for position only, and it's going to go in and remember 72, but if I want to do 10 and fill it with placeholder and deselect, it is a mask. Does that make sense? Everything you're going to put in there, it's going in there. If I go now and do file place and bringing a Photoshop image from somewhere, it goes directly there. Does that make sense? So basically, as long as you see the curve, so I can still go in here and say, you know what, that was awesome, but let me go in and go into some of my brushes and now mix a little bit and do all kind of crazy stuff on top of the text. So you can see that. And I can go in and play with opacity and blending and even hierarchy. Why? Because it is vector. Does that make sense? So it makes life a lot easier. Let me help you. If you need some help, let me know. I'm going to release that and I can come over. Anybody needs help here? Are you okay? The tablet good? It doesn't have the perfect this one is the medium one, but it's still good.
But that's not the brush you want to use? I think you're still using a blob brush.
But you can use a blow brush. You can use any brush you want.
But you want to select one of these.
Okay. So go to the regular brush and then select one of the others. Yeah. So basically, you can use anything that you want in this one just to create the color that you want and anything. Does that make sense? So you can go into the bristle brushes and play with them. And the way I did the background, I basically went in there and play with object one on top of each other and play with the opacity with them. What does it mean? I want you to go File and Open. And go in, and there is a file named Bristle Brush. And all the stuff are in there. So you can see here, you do have some layers. And what I want you to see is this is the cover, right? But I want you to go over to the other side, to the empty artboard. We're going to try to do something like it. Let's say you needed to do a book cover. We're not going to do the type, but you need to do a book cover drawing with some brushes. And some of the brushes we're going to use some of the brushes I already have here, and some of them you're going to open some other brushes. So I want you to go in. Everything else is locked over here. And then you have an area that says demo. Do you see that? And I'm locking the other stuff. I'm just going to be on the demo layer for now. And then the first thing I want to do is I want to create just a regular color. And I'm looking at my colors here, and I have all the colors and the swatches. I already prepared some colors. And maybe I'm working with some reds and some blues. So I'm going to my rectangle tool. And I'm going to click and drag a long rectangle the size of the entire artboard with the bleed. And I'm going to fill that, let's say, with, I'm going to go in, and you can see I have different kind of cyans. I fill it with cyan for now. Now I'm going to say draw inside. So that's going to be my base color. Your base color could be any other color that you want. And, oh, I just clicked on another color. Okay. And now I'm deselecting. Why am I deselecting? Because what do I need to do when I'm using brushes now? To change the color of the stroke the whole time. So if I don't deselect, what I'm going to change? I'm going to change the color of this one. And that's the one they have to pay attention in Illustrator. If something you don't want to happen, you have to deselect it. Otherwise, it's happening, right? So I'm going to my brush. And I'm going to make sure my stroke is activated. And I have no fill. I don't need any fill right now. And I'm going to a color. So I'm going to go in maybe to a light cyan. And you can use any color that you want. This is the part that it's fun, right? I have the swatches. I have the layer. I can use just the swatches. I already have some brushes here. Where did I take all these crazy brushes? Some of them I made. Some of them, they are in your system already. So which one I made, these guys are on your system. These are your bristle brushes. So I'm going to start with bristles. And I'm going to say I want this one. And I want to have that. And then if I don't think it looks good enough, I'm just going to do that. You see what I'm doing? I'm just creating all kind of lines all over the place. Does that make sense? And I can bring back, okay, I lost my brush panel, and I can go and bring it back. You can see I have my brush and I can go and play with it. Now, I might want to use a different color, so I'm going to go into a darker one. And one thing I want to show you, while I'm drawing with it, what if I don't like the width of it and I don't want to change the look of the brush? I can always do the stroke. Do you see what happens now? I made the stroke a lot bigger, so it's almost covered everything. I might even go into a purple color, and you can say, well, it's too much. I can go all the way up to the opacity, and I have something called the blending mode. And I can change it to a multiply blending mode, so look at that. I can change that to an overlay, which I don't get any result, or soft light, or I can go darken, and you can see, or I can even go in and play with the opacity. So everything that I'm doing now, and even if I go to a different color, it will remember the blending mode and the opacity. Do you see I'm already getting some kind of a background? And this is actually the direction you want to work with, because there's no rules now. If you tell me to reproduce the other cover that I did, I don't think I can do it. Each time I do it, it's different colors. It's almost like working with a canvas in a studio, and somebody says to you, do it exactly the same. Very few people can do that exactly. Me, I can't. Because when you do it, you just play with a brush and just do like a splatter of color. So if I like it already, and I know I have a lot of groups of it, look what I'm doing. I'm going to click on the one. I'm not getting out of draw inside, but I'm going to click again now, edit content, and look what I have there. You see how many already? And I can just right away going to do object and group. Sometime I will even lock this group now. And why would I do that? Because it will be easier for me to start working with it when some of the groups are locked, and it's not gonna interrupt me to work with, and it's not gonna move. You see, it's still there, and now I'm still on draw inside. So now I can go in, let's say, to this color, and then maybe I'm gonna go in and say, you know what, I want to go into this one and do stuff like that. I created that, and now maybe I'm gonna go in and do overlay. So look at that. In the overlay, I got different kind of colors. I might go in and do another one just like that. Look at these colors here. Now it's like a party or like fire or something. If I don't want to get it, again, not all the time, like I'm just going to say maybe that. Oh, maybe I like this one better, and maybe I'm going to make him play with the opacity, and I think I like that. And you can see sometimes I just do like a little smear on the side. Little thing like this. I tend also to use sometimes plain whites, and then go in and do 100% and do normal, and this here all of a sudden you get kind of like pure whites around here, almost kind of like showing you that you did some little brush stroke to create some drawing. Does that make sense? So you kind of want to start playing with it a little bit, because this is going to help you for background, but it's going to help you for titles. It's going to help you to make objects look a little more interesting. It's going to make you, even if you take, let's say you're going to need to do like a report as like communication people, and all of a sudden you find like a very boring clip art. And you know it happens, right? And everybody is using it. So you bring it to Illustrator, and you expand it, and you take these brushes and you draw, and somebody's gonna ask you, where did you get this one? Because this one has a lot of beautiful colors inside, and how did you get that? That's a different way of working. So look at that. I do have these little guys. You see here, I have here like portraits. How did I get these guys? This one, I made them from the image that I have ready for you to work with. So I can see that if I don't like them the same way, I can always go in and make them smaller. I can make the spacing a little bit different. And I can go in and I can tint them. And then if you click and apply, you see they're completely white here because I have a white. Are you okay? It's excitement from the brushes, right? Yay! So I can play with that. I just want to tell you that you can be like really creative. Other ways I'm doing some tough stuff like this, I have another trick to show you. Let's say sometime I say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So I'm going to do a box, one, and I'm going to do another one. You see what I'm doing? And another one, and another one, and another one. Bunch of them, right? One on top of each other. And then I'm going to go to the first one, and I'm going to go to one of my watercolor brushes. Where did I take these watercolor brushes? All the way down in your brush panel, you do have different kind of panels and brushes. And you do have your watercolor brushes over there. And I went in and just brought them in there. So you have vector pack, you have artistic, and in the artistic you have watercolor artistic. And you can take as many as you want. And now a lot of time I like to play with it by making them bigger like that, giving them an interesting color, and play with blending mode. So when they start overlapping one on top of each other, they're going to start doing a very interesting stuff. And I can go back here to another one, and then I can find this one, and then go back here and make it purple. Oops, see, that's why I locked the others. You see what happens here? I end up selecting the one I'm not supposed to. So I'm going to select just the object I just drew. And if it's hard for you to see, look at that. It's kind of hard to see. I'm going to go in and select just that. And then I might go in here and put a brush on it. And then I'm going to go back here and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And then put another brush on it. And go in and make even the stroke bigger. And this is how I get different kind of shapes to create a nice atmosphere here. So I use shapes. Yes, I draw with shapes to create what I have there. So I use it with the brushes, but I do draw all kind of shapes to put brushes on it. Does that make sense? Questions so far? Do you guys like it? You can see, you can play forever and tell me, don't talk so much. We want to play. Because that's what happened a lot of time, because as I said before, there were few rules and the rest is really up to you. So that's why I'm showing you different examples of how to create the brushes. I want you to go back to the one that says scatter brush, the one we opened in the beginning. And I'm going to go to my workspace and reset my workspace. And look at the samples. You have an out brush here. See, this is what we just did, found with Adobe Illustrator. And these are the brushes that you have here. The one I made from them, this brush and that brush. So look what I have here. Both of them are Photoshop images. So the first thing I can do is go in and drag and drop that here and make that, let's say, a scatter brush. So this one is a pixel scatter brush. Does that make sense? As simple as that. and I can go in and try it, and this is what I have. Okay. What else can I do here? Not a lot. I can change sizes. I can change the flexibility, like like if it's going inside the path or outside the path. Can I change the color? Why not? Because this is a Photoshop file. And also, if I'm going to a bigger stroke and start doing that, you look, in the end of the day, you're gonna start seeing some pixelation, which you're not gonna like. So I'm gonna go into this one, and I'm gonna go and trace it. So I can trace it two ways. I'll trace it one time just like that. And let's do some tricking to it, because what if you almost want to do kind of a color separation while you're tracing it? That could be a nice way, right? You can also trace it just with a regular color, and it's going to look exactly like the Photoshop one. But I'm going to zoom in and make it a little more interesting. I am going to my object image trace over here, and I'm making this one, let's say 128. That's okay. The beginning, right? I'm going to my layers panel. This is the one I just made. And I kind of want to move it to another layer so you can see how to work with it easier. If I want to move this object to another layer, do you guys know how to do it? You select it. You go into the top area and say new layer. You're going to say, let's say, demo brushes. There's nothing in this layer yet. You click on this little indicator and you drag it over to the new layer. Now it's in here. I'm going to go and turn off the others, and I know I'm going to go panel options. I'm going to make it larger. So you guys are going to see only what's going on this layer. What do you have here? Just that. And it is a trace, right? I want to trick the trace. So look what I'm doing. I'm going to go in and duplicate, add it to the add layer symbol. So you can see it's one on top of each other. I'm going to turn off the bottom one, select this one, and this one I'm going to do maybe making it like a silhouette. And maybe change a little bit the hierarchy and put that on top. So you see this one on top of that and this one on top of that. That's okay. And then this one, I mean, it didn't say, I'm going to say ignore white. So you can see some of the areas are there or some not. And now I'm going to go in and duplicate the next one. And the next one, maybe I'm going to do a different kind of something like that. And then maybe I'm going to duplicate it again and make this one with barely anything. So I'm playing basically on kind of color separation. 1 and 2 and 3 and like that. Now I can go one by one. I can go into the silhouette and expand it. Go to View, Show Transparency Grid, and make sure it's kind of transparent. Go back to the top one, and then go back here and expand it. And go into the Direct Selection tool, and maybe take away stuff. So you see I'm starting to see some little things there. And then go back to this one, and expand that, and go into the Direct Selection tool, and start seeing some stuff here. Go into this one, expand it, and now I can start playing with the area that I have to start selecting. So some stuff that I have in between, I can go back here and I have this area here, and maybe I can go and select that, and then maybe I can go into different areas and start selecting some stuff to create things that have dual colors in them. Does that make sense? And I can even select stuff like that and create that. And maybe this one was too much, so I'm going to select that again, and I can go in and do this color or this color, and I can also go in to my opacity and play with it. But basically I'm going to start getting some more and more interesting things. Does that make sense? So that's how I'm going to go back here, and I might go and put this one on top if I don't like that, or this one on top of that. And then depending on the areas that I want to go and play with, this is the stuff that I'm going to go in and start playing with. So that's kind of like I messed it up completely. Of course, that's not what I meant to do, but you can see I can start playing with it. Sometime I will really go in and color separate it in a certain way that it's really going to work kind of perfect for that. Does that make sense? And sometime I'm just going to do my little trial and error and say which one works for me and why this one is not working. I might go into the opacity and then play in the area that I have and start getting some more shading by playing with some screens and things like this. And that's how I created in the end this kind of a brush. And it became like a little bit more interesting than the regular brushes that you see. Does that make sense? So now if I'm going back to my brush panel, I can see like this one. How did I make this one? This one I just did it black and white, and basically I was able to do a draw inside with the brushes. Not all the time you can with trace. If you're lucky, you get it. If you don't, not lucky, you don't get it. Other simple brushes that you have that we didn't do it and usually I start with, these are the regular calligraphy brushes. What does it mean? If I'm going to my brush panel, the top one are the calligraphy brushes. You see, these are the simple one. These are the one that they look like the blob, but they're not blob. So if you double click, you can create your own calligraphy brushes. As many as you want. And you can just draw with them. These are simple brushes. These are simple stroke brushes as they are. And you can see an example with it in the beginning here in artboard number 2. Basically in artboard number 2 here, you can see, because it's selected, that's why. You can see here in artboard number 2, I basically played here with my calligraphy brushes. You want to work with them first by double clicking, deciding if you want to select them or not, deciding on the fidelity of the brush. You can save as many brushes as you want. It looks like a blob brush, but it's not a blob brush. Does that make sense? So you can draw with all the brushes, you can draw with pixel brushes. The question is, can you draw with other stuff? Yes, you can. You can draw with the curvature tool. What does it mean? It's not a brush, but if I go to File and New, and I'm just going to go in and create another one. Let's say I don't want to use any of the brushes today for starter. And I'm going to my curvature tool. My curvature tool will work like the pen tool, but with curves. And you see here, I'm drawing and I'm drawing and I'm drawing and drawing and closing it. I don't even know what I drew now. I don't even need to go to another tool. I basically select that and bring it here. Select this one and bring that here. And if I want this one to be a round corner, I double click on it. I mean a straight corner. Double click on it, straight corner. Double click on it, round corner. I can move it around. If I like this drawing, guess what? I can apply a brush to it. I can apply this brush to it. I can apply this brush to it, which is kind of a texture brush or whatever you have. So a lot of people will start the drawing and they're gonna go in and then start to click and drag and drag and drag and drag, and let's say create something like this, and then move it around and move that around and move this around and just playing with it, and then basically go in and create some stuff with that. Of course, you can draw with the pen tool if you want, which is a lot harder. And of course, you can go always to your pencil tool, which is going to be your regular drawing tool. And then you can apply to it a brush if you want. This one, you don't even have to apply a brush. You can just apply a stroke to it. And you have something called the width tool in Illustrator, that you can go in and change the width of your stroke. So now you can see, it looks like I put a brush on top of it, but I didn't. What I did over here, I put a profile of a stroke on it. So you have a lot of drawing tools. You have the shape tools that we didn't even get into it. You have all the set of brushes, and then you have the pen tool, the pencil tool, the curvature tool, the line tool, the pathfinder. So basically all the tools are gearing in the end to going in and drawing in Illustrator. So I'm opening it now to Q&A. If you have any questions, anything that you want me to explore more. I put the PDF, it's not a PDF, it's a Spark presentation. I sent it to Erica, and she can, I think she put it on the site. So this one is actually step by step working with these brushes. And you see kind of like the example we did in the class. So it's kind of good to have. And it's basically all what we did here today. But this one is kind of like takes it into more stuff with it. Any questions? Do you see the difference between these brushes and for how many people use Photoshop brushes? Did you see the new stuff in Photoshop now? They changed the Photoshop brushes. So they're a lot easier to use. They're the same brushes, but the way you save them, it's a lot easier. So they made them into folder, which is wonderful. So it's a lot easier. But they are all pixel brushes. There's never vector brushes. So that's the difference between the two of them.